Hey guys, my name is Richard. Welcome back to the channel. A lot of you guys watched my day in the life at JPMorgan video, and I noticed in the comments section there were a lot of people who wanted to know how I landed the internship in the first place, what projects I worked on, and just my overall experience at JPMorgan. So this is that video. I also noticed in the comments section that I really need to get a new toothbrush, which I have invested in, and apparently I should not be tucking in my polo, and I need to trim my belt, so I have done all three things. Before I get into the video, I wanted to show off a few highlights because I had a really great time in New York, and I don't know what to do with this footage, so here you go.
Told my brothers one day we gon' make it. We just gotta grind for that paycheck. Mama told me one day I'd be famous. Remember when she used to say she hate this. That ended with life when I say shit. Now I'm inside all them people's playlists. So one day I'll be stomping on them stages. But right now we just dancing in the basement. Right inside the basement. Said it's 4 a.m. still with wavy tweaking bases. Learn this shit ourselves on my own time. I made shifts. Shooting for the moon, gon' turn this Honda to a spaceship. Shorty won't fuck with me. I just wanna get some rain and sleep. Shit a little free, yeah. Say what I want, then I get what I want. It's too easy, yeah. Baby, you know I'm a G. I gotta double them C's. She wanna put it on me.
So the entire application process took about a month for me, from applying online to getting my offer. So I applied online with no referrals, just through the typical career page website. I think at the time I had one real internship under my belt. Everything else was just pretty much projects or coursework or nothing super flashy. On the same day I applied, I got this HireVue package. HireVue is this new website that a lot of tech companies and banks have been using to interview their candidates. So the first coding question I got was the coin change problem. Basically, they give you a list of coins of different denominations, and they give you a target value, and you need to be able to figure out the minimum number of coins to achieve that target value. So the second question I got was a reverse and add problem. So they would give you a number and you would want to check if it's a palindrome. If it's not a palindrome, then you would have to take the reverse of that number, add it to the original number, and then do the same operation and check again if it's a palindrome. So both of the questions overall were, in my opinion, pretty easy. I would say around LeetCode easy / low medium. After the coding questions, I had to do 2 timed webcam responses. The first question was, how did you approach the coding questions? Like, how did you solve the problems? How did you structure your code? And the second question I got was to talk about a project where you demonstrated leadership experience. So once I submitted the HireVue package, I got a text from the recruiter 4 days later, and she basically said, oh, you made it to the phone interview round. So she wanted me to schedule 2 phone interviews back to back. Both of them were 30 minutes each. And one was going to be technical, one was going to be behavioral. So a few days later, I actually got the phone interviews, and the first interview was a behavioral interview. I was set up with a vice president at JPMorgan, and basically he asked me to name a JPMorgan Chase product that I've used in the past and tell me how you would improve it. So it sounded like a PM question to me, not gonna lie. I was not prepared for this, totally caught off guard. But I kind of BS'd my way through it. Yeah, I BS'd my way through it. Ultimately, I ended up going with ATMs because I don't know. NANI? I told them that their ATMs could be more user-friendly with a better user interface, and that it could be more responsive to the touch, because a lot of times when you're on ATMs, you will have to press a button like multiple times to get it to register. The technical portion was a breeze for me because I was asked questions that I learned directly from my data structures class, like how do you implement a hash table? What is a hashing function? How do you resolve hashing collisions? And what are threads? A little bit of OS stuff. A few days later, I received an email from my recruiter saying that the managers I interviewed with said I did a great job. A week later, I got rejected, which was a great feeling because I thought I had done well. Apparently not. And so I was really surprised by that. But to be honest, I didn't really prepare. I kind of just winged the interview. Anyways, I had an urge to get some feedback, and so I drafted a really quick email. It took me about a minute and sent it off to the recruiter. 15 minutes later, the recruiter responded and asked me if I could jump on a call. And so I jumped on a call with her, and apparently she was telling me that I did pretty well on the technical portion, but the behavioral portion didn't demonstrate my passion for JPMorgan because I didn't know anything about the products. So she asked me a really, really simple question. Are you interested in working in the finance industry? And of course I said no.
What?
Just kidding. I said yes because I really needed this internship. And then she was like, you know what? I will try to move your application to the front of the queue. We'll see what happens and I'll let you know how everything goes. The next morning I got a call from my recruiter and she told me that I got into the internship program. She told me the compensation details over the phone and it was much, much higher than I originally had thought. And finally, a week later, I received the official offer letter through email and I signed the paperwork and the rest is history. JPMorgan was a totally new experience for me. I had never worked at a big company prior to JPMorgan, so that was really exciting. I think a lot of people think that when you're working at a bank, you're working really long hours. And that is true for certain roles, but not for software engineers. Like you can come in at 9, leave at 5. There's a really good work-life balance. My team consisted of 5 other engineers and 1 other intern. And all the people on my team were really, really bright individuals, very, very smart people who knew the answers to every question I asked. My manager was super chill. I scheduled one-on-one coffee chats with the other members on the team to get to know each of their roles and their path into JPMorgan as well. And occasionally after work, we would go to a bar just to catch up on life and hang out. In addition to having a manager, I had a mentor. And a mentor is someone that an intern can get really close to during the internship, someone who's worked in the company for a year or 2 or even longer. And my mentor was great. We went on a lot of boba runs to Gongcha or Coco or we just explored a lot of boba shops around New York and we would get lunch once a week, which is really fun. I kind of mentioned earlier that I scheduled coffee chats with the other members on my team. I should also mention that I scheduled one-on-ones with other people in the organization, NYU alumni of my fraternity at NYU, and I got to meet a whole range of people that were all so nice to me and they were so much fun to talk to. So now I'll talk about the technical stuff, like the projects I worked on and what technologies I got to work with. I worked in the corporate investment banking division under the risk management team, and I got to work with technologies like Python, Pandas, NumPy, and a few other technologies around that area. Throughout the 10-week internship, I had 3 main projects. The first project was to essentially build a data pipeline in Python, which takes data from the cloud, stores it in the database, and serves it onto a web server so we can visualize all this data. My team builds a lot of internal tools for other people in the org. So we had a lot of data, like user analytics data, that we weren't leveraging to its full potential. And so we wanted to build a data pipeline that essentially makes the process of visualizing and clustering all this data into this dashboard much more efficient. And we wanted to do this to basically provide insight onto how much of an impact our tools were having on the company, how we can improve our tools, and also whether we should onboard more members to meet the growing demands of our tools. We use Pandas to pivot the data into different views and integrate it with a data visualization tool. So the second project I worked on dealt with Jupyter Notebooks. At the time, I think the financial market API wasn't exactly the most user-friendly. It was very complicated to use, and it was especially complicated for people who didn't have as strong of a technical background, who still needed to get access to this financial market data, so traders and quants. The other intern on my team and I were collaborating on this one project to build a UI on Jupyter Notebooks that allows traders or quants to really query data, aggregate them into one place. On top of the API, we added more advanced search functionality. So previously you had to look up a financial instrument by typing the exact ticker symbol, but now we had a search mode where you could search by the prefix, and that makes traders and quants' lives much easier. You could also filter financial instruments by asset type, security type, and whatever exchange it's on. So there's a lot of useful drop-down menus that traders can now use to navigate this financial market API, and it had a UI. On top of that, we implemented a Jupyter Notebooks pagination widget for traders and quants to view large amounts of data. So if you were querying a large amount of data, instead of having to scroll down like hundreds and hundreds of rows of financial information, you can now view it by a page. The last project I worked on was augmenting a Lambda API that returns like financial information. So let's say you want to look up a price for a certain stock on a specific date. Well, this API would return all that information, but it wouldn't let you query over a date range. So I added a function that allows you to query over a date range. I also added technical indicators to the API, which are basically statistics that allow you to predict trends in the market. So for example, I implemented a function that calculates the Bollinger Bands for a financial instrument. If you don't know, Bollinger Bands are a way to measure the volatility of an instrument. I also added a function that calculates the simple moving average of a stock price or volume or whatever statistic you're trying to calculate. And basically this smooths out short-term fluctuations and highlights the longer-term trends or cycles. And lastly, I just learned a lot about the software development lifecycle at a big company. For example, I learned how to test my code, I learned how to deploy it to a massive code base, and I learned about continuous integration. One of the most common questions I get from a lot of friends or random people is, did you get a lot of free stuff? And let me tell you, a few weeks before the internship started, they emailed us a $25 Amazon gift card. I got a JPMorgan backpack, which you might have seen in my day in the life video. And I also got like this portable charger with the JPMorgan logo on it. Totally unnecessary, but it is what it is. You can put it in the backpack and you can have the charging cord come out and you can charge your phone while you're walking around New York, which is really cool. I also got one of those iconic navy canvas banker bags with the name of the company on the straps. I think every major bank gives these bags to their interns. I think I saw Goldman have it, Morgan Stanley, and other banks around New York. I got a few notebooks, more notebooks, and then I got a bunch of pens because why not? I also got free admission to a lot of museums around New York, as well as the Bronx Zoo, the aquarium, and a lot of other destinations that you might want to go to on the weekend. I also got a Pluralsight subscription so I could learn about other technologies on the job. So throughout the internship, there were a lot of intern events. Orientation was really grand. On the first day, I remember there were about 1,000 interns dressed sharply in formal business attire. We had a really big breakfast in a massive ballroom with chandeliers. And we had opening remarks from managing directors who radiated corporate sophistication and IQ. We got to go to Smorgasburg, which is like a food festival on the weekend. And they gave us $20 to buy whatever food we wanted. We got to go to a Yankees baseball game, which was really cool. We had a speaker series where we got to listen to a lot of executives at JPMorgan talk to us and answer our questions. For example, we got to see Mr. JPMorgan himself, Jamie Dimon. I remember sitting in the first row right across from him. He was 6 feet away from me and I could have touched him.
Hello, we're at a Jamie Dimon talk.
We're about to see Jamie Dimon in the flesh. We are in the first row. You can kind of see the speaker. Setup is right there.
He's not here yet.
Yeah, unfortunately. We also got to see Mary Erdos, who is the CEO of Asset and Management. We saw Lori Beard, who is the CIO. And actually, I have a funny story. I was just standing next to her at an event, and she struck up a conversation with me, asked me how my day was going, what my projects were, and she's one of the nicest people I've ever met, so she's really cool. JPMorgan also invites a lot of random speakers to come in and talk. So we got to listen to the founders of The Skim, which you might have heard of. It's a daily newsletter that is very successful, and the founders talked about their journey in making the company and building it out to where it is today. I also got to meet the founder of DigiTour and got a selfie with her. And at the end of the internship, we had a really, really bougie farewell cruise. So basically all the interns got to jump on a boat and we got to go across the Hudson River and just party on the cruise, which was really, really fun. And lastly, I wanted to throw in a section of random experiences and facts that I learned throughout my internship. During the internship, most websites were banned, unfortunately. So the only websites that I could go on were work websites like Stack Overflow or Reddit. One time I lost my umbrella and it was a rainy day, so I went down to the front desk to ask if they had a lost and found. They did, and unfortunately they couldn't find my umbrella, but they just gave me a JPMorgan umbrella. The cafeteria food is not free. I know at a lot of tech companies like Facebook or Google, the employees have a privilege of having free food all day. At JPMorgan, that's not the case. You have to pay for your food, and it is New York, so it's a little more expensive. Work hours vary by role. So I had a really standard 9 to 5 job, but I remember asking another intern who was on the trading operations side of things, and he told me that he had to come in the office at 7 a.m. and leave at 7 p.m. So there's a really wide spectrum in terms of the work hours you're gonna get. And it's very, very role dependent. Different offices have different environments. I was placed in the headquarters, which to be honest, sounds really cool, but it was the most boring office. We didn't have any fancy perks. We did not have ping pong tables. It was a very, very corporate office. We had an internal global hackathon. So there was one day that was kind of sectioned off for any JPMorgan employee to join an existing team and work on a project and hack on it for a day. I remember working on a team of designers and engineers and building an app that allows you to track your income and expenses through pie charts and graphs, and basically recommend places where you can cut costs. And I remember doing some really clutch React commits at the last minute right before the submission deadline, and it felt like a real hackathon. This is really cool, but JPMorgan actually has a chess club. For those of you who know me well, I'm an avid chess player and I love playing the game. And it was really cool to be able to participate and meet all the other people on the chess team. Even cooler, JPMorgan is part of this chess league where all the major banks and a few tech companies come together and form teams to compete with each other in a friendly tournament. I remember the JPMorgan chess club leader inviting me to come play, but unfortunately at the time, my internship had already ended and I already moved out of New York. Apparently, Hikaru Nakamura's brother works in the same office as me and occasionally shows up to the chess club to play a few friendly games. And if you don't know, Hikaru Nakamura is the former world number 2. So it's really cool that his brother, who's also very talented in chess, works in the same office. I think that wraps up most of my internship. Overall, it was a really great experience. I met a lot of wonderful people. My manager was great, my mentor was great, the other intern on my team was great, and I made a lot of friends. If you're applying to internships right now, I recommend you apply as soon as you can. Ideally before school starts, because the prime time for when companies are recruiting is August, September, October. It's super early in the school year. And if you miss those deadlines, then you will have to wait an entire year just to get that internship experience again. If you're lacking work experience or projects, definitely go to hackathons to boost your resume, because that is the prime way to get resume-worthy projects and get noticed by recruiters. You can go to a hackathon, pump out a project in 48 hours, and even win a few awards while you're at it. And that will catch the eye of any recruiter out there. For those of you who have already secured internships, definitely spend time scheduling coffee chats with other people in the org, with other interns, with people on your team, and just random people that you come across, because an internship is so much more than just the work you do. It's about the people you meet, and it's a really great way to network with other people, get to know the work that they do, and just have fun with your internship. It's really, really all about the people, in my opinion. And lastly, you will probably have a lot of downtime, so definitely find ways to fill that gap. Don't sit there and just browse Reddit. During my downtime, I used Pluralsight to learn new technologies, and I learned a lot out of it. So definitely take advantage of your downtime and don't waste it. All right, that pretty much wraps up this video. If you liked it, please drop a like. If you haven't seen my other video about a day in the life at JPMorgan, please check it out. And if you have any video suggestions, let me know in the comments down below. With that, I hope you guys learned something. If you're currently applying to an internship or a full-time job right now, good luck on your job applications. And if you're currently applying to JPMorgan, best of luck. Hope you join the JPMorgan. With that, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
All them people's playlists. So one day I'll be stomping on stages. But right now we just dancing in the basement.